Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Katie Huggins, and I'm one of the wellness coaches here at Chick-fil-A. And it is my pleasure and honor to introduce you guys to Marian Andrews. She has been in her field for over 30 years. She has her master's from the University of Georgia in social work. And she is also a licensed parent coach and is a clinical social worker.
That's right.
So I'm just so excited to have her come and get to share with you guys. I've actually been able to hear her speak before, and it really made an impact on me and just gave me some sanity at home when it comes to discipline. You know, there are so many little things. I have 3 young girls, all under 4. And so there are so many times I'm like, what do I do? I mean, we were just sitting here chatting about, I have one that wants to wake me up in the middle of the night, and she's 2.5. I'm like, what are you doing? But just to get that framework and those boundaries, it just brought so much peace of mind to me to say, here's the framework, here's the foundations, focus on these, and let those little things go. So I hope it's encouraging to you guys as much as it has been for me. And so I'd like to turn it over to Marian.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you. I tell you, that was nice what Katie said, but let me tell you the things and why I'm here is because I am in a private practice. I see lots of families, I see lots of adults, I see lots of kids, lots of people that have gotten in trouble or situations in life are just too much, and so they're wanting my help. But why I'm here is because every time I get an opportunity to speak to folks before they find themselves in somebody's office with everything over the top for them, it's like I'm just dying to take advantage of it. It's really a passion of mine because I think if I can help you with some parenting framework, kind of give you a paradigm that works for you, then maybe it'll help you over the rough points before you get in where folks like me are trying to help you out more individually. Katie said that I'm in practice. I do a lot of parent coaching. I do a lot of speaking. I think the thing that I'd like you to know today, though, most is that I've got 3 kids, and they're 23, 25, 27. And when my youngest was born, the oldest was still 3 years old. She hadn't yet turned 4. So what I'm speaking to you about comes from me as a professional, but it equally comes from me as a mom. I'm telling you, I've walked the road. I'm still walking the road. It's just that now my kids are adults. What I thought of when Katie asked me to speak in terms of what would be helpful to you is to take a look at yourself as a parent leader. And I'm going to talk about that more in a moment, but really what I want you to be doing, if this works for y'all today, is to kind of come away from here evaluating yourself in the role of a parent with your leadership skills and deciding what in all those skills you're going to work on. What are the areas that you think you're strong in, and what are the ones that you need to do a little more focus on? For any parent, you know, our kids come into this world, and because by definition they're infants, our immediate role as a parent is absolutely 100% caretaking. I mean, we are there to look after their needs, to respond as well as we can to any sound, need, you know, change of temperature, anything they need, because if we don't, they will die. They can't do anything without us, and that's pretty obvious. The deal is, for me, over all the years, what I have seen is that you walk into the role as a caretaker and you are overwhelmed with it sometimes, but you begin to know a little bit about what that means, so that's how you operate. Where folks get into trouble, from my experience, is that once your child leaves the baby years, what is required of us as parents is to be more than a caretaker, more than a 24/7 person that's just meeting need, meeting need, meeting need. And for many, many of us, that change or addition of roles is hard for folks. And kind of our default position is that we just remain caretakers. And I would say to you that somewhere around a year to 18 months to 2 years, depending on your own child, your role has to change. And if it doesn't change, that's where you find yourself in conflict about what it is you're supposed to do. And what it needs to change to be is to be a leader. Now, let's just talk. What in the world am I talking about as a leader? Well, let me back up to the role when you are just caretaking. For many of y'all, there probably are some single parents in this room, but for many of you that are in a relationship, this is the way the caretaking works. That baby is the center of your world. Every decision, almost everything you do revolves around taking care of that baby. If you're married, then the baby is in the center of the world. You are just rotating around that baby, doing everything you can take care of him. And your husband, he's like the gopher. He's the person that you're giving commands to. You're telling him, this is what I want you to do. Go get that diaper. Heat this up. Go take care of this child. And he is not really a part of the real universe, you know. He is rotating out there on the edges of the world, being told what to do. And I'm not telling you that's true for everybody, but that's true for most of us. All right? So, here's the first thing that is required of you as a leader. When your child begins to move out of that infancy role into the toddler role is, I've got to define what the universe is in our family. And for most of us, we just like the universe fine. We are glad for our husbands to be told what to do, to be the gophers, to stay out of the decision-making part of our lives. You know, they don't really know how, and I'm making some of this up because it'll be different for all of y'all, but they don't really know how to put the diaper on right. They don't know what outfit goes together. They don't know exactly what to feed. So you want the universe to stay where you just tell them what to do and they carry out your way of doing things the best you can, the best they can. Well, as a leader, what is required of you at that time is to invite your husband back into the universe, back into it as a critical team-making part of the universe that is equally involved in the decision-making and who does what and how things are handled. But if he gets invited back into the universe, guess what? There's not room for you, him, and the baby in the center of the universe. You gotta push the baby out of the center of the world. And for most of us, that's hard to do because there's just a lot. It's stressful, it's exhausting when you're needed 24/7, but there's also, for most of us, a big connection going on with your child that it's hard to want to switch. And so you like, in some ways, having them the center of your world. However, if you are going to be a leader, one quality of a leader is that they've got to know where they're headed in life. And just a very basic principle of where you're headed with your child in life is they are not the center of the universe. And if you keep them the center of the universe, what are they going to do when they go to kindergarten and they're not the center of that classroom? What are they going to do when they, go are on a sports team and the coach doesn't make all decisions based on what they want or how they want to play or whatever? Life doesn't work with us as the center of the universe because we're not. And so early on, as that child moves out of the need to be the center of the universe, we have to help them get out. But that's hard. And I'll go back to the thing about your husbands, is if you invite your husband to come into the middle of the universe with you, then you've got to be willing to let them make decisions with you. Maybe y'all have experienced it. I think people in this room have lots of different ages of kids. I mean, I just can tell you easily a million different stories. Of my three, one of my second one, when he was 3, 4-year-old, I'm telling you, from my point of view, he was the cutest little boy ever. He had white, blonde, curly hair, and all he wanted from me at night was to sit in that bed with him and read him story after story after story. And I thought it was wonderful. It was a very sweet time. It was just precious. And how dare my husband come in one day and say, Marian, you can't spend 45 minutes or an hour in the room with Nathan every night, because by the time you get out of the room, I'm asleep or ready to go to sleep. You need to limit the amount of stories that you read him so that we have time together. And I was like, what? I don't want you deciding that. I don't want you part of that decision. But that's an example, if I can give you that concrete, that's where you bring him back in the role as part of the decision because it was good. Now, I have given that, let me say this to you, so if you start asking me questions, because I'm going to give you some time at the end, you don't ask me. I've had people, when I give that example, come back up to me and say later on, well, I think reading is important. And I'm like, how can you not want to do that with your child? And I'm saying, you're missing the point. The point is, it is important. The things that our children need from us are important. It's just that we have to begin to, once they get out of infancy, to decide what they need and what they want and what everybody else needs and wants, and work that stuff together. They cannot stay the center of the universe. It's not good for them, and it's not good for the other relationships in the family. I don't know if that makes sense. So that's one part of what being a leader is that you have to be the one to invite your husband to come back into the center of the world, and you have to invite your child to get out of that. Okay, what in the world am I talking about? Oh my goodness. Having your child, let me say this about your children. Guess what? When your child is born, they don't know how to care about anybody else's feelings. They don't. They don't know how to consider what's good for anybody else or not. They don't. They are born in this world, self-absorbed. They are the center. They don't know any different. So if they're going to learn different, as the adult leader, I'm going to have to begin to show them that. And again, when they're little bitty, there's a million different examples of that. Part of it is learning to tell your child that you and he, or you and she, are not one and the same human being. In other words, you're one person and they're another. So everything they want, you're not just jumping at their beck and call. So if they want to talk to you while you're on the phone, you have to be able to say no. Wait, not now, in a minute. Well, some children's personalities are such that they'll take that. Other kids are not going to go down quietly if you tell them to wait. They want it. They don't know that they shouldn't be getting it. And I, as the leader of the house, have to understand that they weren't born with that knowledge, and that I can't. Wouldn't it be nice if every child we had, just you could download that information in them and they just automatically acted and knew it, but they don't. So I just have to slowly teach them. But it is a learning process with them. So when you tell your child to wait the first time when you're on the telephone and they just scream louder, it's not that you have born Satan as a child. It's that they don't know that you really mean they have to wait. They don't understand what that means. And so you just keep working with them in that's what you want, and you're running the show. So ultimately, that's what you're going to get, but you have to keep working at it slowly and slowly. Katie and I were talking earlier about her 2.5-year-old who absolutely wants her attention in the middle of the night. Well, she doesn't know that she's not entitled to her mommy's attention in the middle of the night. But I'm the parent, and I know that she's not. So Katie was talking about all the different things they try to do to teach her that. She's not biting. She wants that attention. That's a 2.5-year-old. But I am on the course to help her understand that, so I just work with her a little at a time. I don't go pick her up, come and bring her in my bed. I don't come get her and go lay in her bed and go to sleep. I decide that I'm going to give her some access, maybe limited access. Maybe I go and pat her back. Maybe I go kiss her. Maybe I go settle her down, and then I'll leave. And I may have to come back 4 times till she gets that she's really just getting a little bitty piece of me, and that pretty soon she's not going to get any pieces of me at that time of night unless she's sick. But it's a work in progress. So let me back up for a second in terms of what it means to be a leader. A leader means you gotta have an idea of where you're headed with your kids. You have to know that you're going somewhere. But I've been a mom. I'm telling you, it's easier to live in survival mode, and we just live in the day-to-day. We're going to get through today. We're going to get through tonight. We're going to get them off to school, and we don't consider that we're headed somewhere with our kids. However, if as a leader you realize that you're headed somewhere with your child, you're trying to produce character traits in them that will let them be successful kids standing on their own 2 feet. If you don't understand that, and if you only stay in survival mode, you're going to always default back to the position of just doing what they need, doing what they want, and keeping the train moving. But so let me give you an example. So like I told you, mine are 23, 25, 27. If we had time, I would ask you this, but we don't really have a lot of time today. But I want you to think for a minute with your 10-year-old or with your 2-year-old. What is it that you want your child to be like when they're 27 years old? You know, what will they look like when they're 25? What will they look like when they're 32? And if you respond to me, well, I want them to have a very successful career, and I want them to I don't know, be proficient at the violin. You just pick what you say, and based on what you pick, those are the things that you're going to emphasize in your life, in their lives. And so if everything's about their education, then when you have a decision to make, A or B, you're going to pick education every time. You're going to make an educational decision. this is what I would say to you about the society that we live in today, is that we have gone overboard in thinking that where we're headed with our children is to teach them skills. And by going overboard with that, we are forgetting that character is what ultimately will help our children be successful in whatever educational life situations that they're in. So, if, and I'm going to play this in specifics in a second, but if as a leader I think, where am I headed with this child? And where I'm headed is to produce a child that is independently standing on their own 2 feet with good judgment and the ability to care about other people and to be a person of integrity and character, then I'm going to make decisions one way. If I only live in the here and now and just try to get through, then I don't really care about character, honestly. I just care about getting them in the car. You know, I just care about getting them to be quiet and go to sleep and quit fighting. And so I make my decisions differently. So let me give you an example. So if I want my child, for example, in the long run, to be a child that stands on their own 2 feet, to me that equals that they handle responsibility well. I've got to early on begin to give them things to be responsible for. I don't know about y'all. I just see faces. I don't know what y'all are like, but I can tell you the easier way to do things is to do the things your kids need done, do them right, and you do them, and take care of it, and let's be moving. So if I want my child to be responsible, then early on, I've got to slowly show them how to make up a bed, just for an example. Now, what 1.5, what 2.5-year-old can make up a bed well? They can't. However, if I've got a goal, if I'm headed for them to be self-sufficient and to do that, I'm starting at 2.5 to help them make up a bed, even if all the making up the bed equals it that they're throwing the pillows on at the end of the day, at the end of when I've pulled the covers up or fixed it. But then I'm going to let them throw the pillows on, and then then we're going to move and we're going to pull up the covers, and then pretty soon they, over time, begin to realize that one of the things they're responsible for when they get up in the morning is to make up their bed. But I've got to start that. But honestly, it's easier to leave the bed unmade, and it's easier to do it yourself because it's going to look a lot better if you do it, you know? Okay, let me give you another example. If I'm thinking in the short term, and I've got a 9-year-old with a poster board project to do for school, I can do it better than they can do it. And if it's educationally important for them to get the A, I'm going to be real tempted to do a bulk of that project, or their hand may be doing it, but I'm really running it because the biggest thing that's important to me is for them to get the A. However, if I'm looking ahead down the road and I think, no, the biggest thing for me is to teach them how to take responsibility for their own piece of poster board, then I'm going to make my choice different. And we're going to get the poster board, and we may talk about what they're going to do, but I'm going to let them scribble, and it's not even going to be pretty, and it's not going to be complete, and it's going to be whatever, but it's going to be something that they did, that they take into the teacher, and then the teacher helps them with it. But I'm telling you, over the years, not only as friends, but as clients, I've dealt with 1 million teachers. And teachers, what they want to say to me when I do either see them as a client or see them in seminars is, how do we tell moms to back out, to back off, to quit doing all this academic work for their child? They come out, we know when the thing gets to school that a 9-year-old can't do this, but it looks so pretty. How do we get them to back out? But now where we're headed in our culture is that there are school systems, particularly if you're set up in a lot of kind of very high-achieving private in schools, they do want you doing it because they want kids functioning at a high level. So I, as the mom, or I, as the mom and the dad, have to decide, am I looking ahead down the road? Do I plan on going to college with my child? If I do, then I'm golden, and then just sitting on top of them and making sure they're dotting every I and dotting every T. But if that's not my goal, then the earlier the better. I start letting them do some of it for themselves, because it doesn't matter as much when they're 10, when they're 6. It certainly matters more when they're 14, 16, 18. But the sooner I do it, the more responsibility they take, and the less, and they learn what happens when they don't turn in their homework. They get to learn it. I don't keep standing in the middle protecting them. All right. Some of y'all are looking at me like, duh, and others of you are looking like, what? So let me say something else to you. What if it's my goal to teach my child, have an adult at 18 or 20 years old that is pretty much content and knows how to kind of handle time and handle what to do with themselves? If that's where I'm headed, then when they're 3 and I'm dying and I just put on video after video after video to entertain them, I get it. We're tired. However, if I know that ultimately they got to learn how to entertain themselves some, then I might make my decision differently, because I'm headed somewhere with these kids. So I'm not just going to put in one video after another video after another video. I'm not telling you might not give them a video, but I'm going to let them have some things and figure out how to entertain themselves a little bit while mommy is cooking or while mommy is helping Bob with his homework. I am not in the business of entertaining them the whole time, because if that's what I'm about, then at 18, what are they going to do? They're going to be looking for somebody else to entertain them. If I want them to stand on their own 2 feet when they're 18 years old, I'm looking for tasks that I can slowly give them in pieces so that they can feel like they can do stuff. So when you're the mom, one of the things, particularly for working moms, that I have found, one of the things that works against you is this creature called the guilt monster. The guilt monster will sit on your shoulders, speak loudly into your ear, and control the decisions that you make with your child. So they will make you forget, if they can, where you're headed with your child. So what am I saying? So you get home at 6:30 at night, and you've got these kids there, but you kind of feel bad that you've been busy all day, you haven't been with them, somebody else has been taking care of them, and so because of that guilt monster, what you do, you start thinking short term, and anything they want, you fall over yourself trying to do. Any task that need to be done in the night, you try to shoulder them on your own because, oh, they're tired from daycare. They're tired from being at school all day. So I should, it's just easier for me to pick up their shoes, for me to organize their book bag, for me to do stuff, for me not to ask them to take their dish off the table. I just need to let them go play. And so you take on a lot of stuff and you forget that where you're headed is to teach them how to take care of responsibility. Now, I know I'm going through a lot of different jumping, but I want to say to you is that the question people come to me over and over and over with about is, I want a child that got high self-esteem. Anybody in here not want that for your child? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to tell you the way to get it. This is the way children gain self-esteem. They gain it by knowing that they are part of something, that they are an important part of something, and that they matter in the house, and that they are competent at whatever level they're in, at whatever age they're in. How they don't get self-esteem is that we do it all for them, so they don't gain any sense of that they can handle their own stuff. That makes you inherently insecure, or that they're not part of something that's bigger than them. When you teach a child that they're part of the family and they have an important part of the family, if all that part is that they pour water in Molly's bowl at night, that's a big deal because they're part. Because where am I headed with my child? I do not want my child at 25 to be a leech on this society. I want them to understand that they are a contributing member of something, and that there's value and a sense of worth and purpose in doing that. And so if I want them that at 25, I can't just give them a pill at 20 to tell them that. I've got to slowly been teaching them that they matter in the house, that mommy needs them when she cooks dinner to do this piece or that piece, when you really don't need them because they don't do the dishes right. They're just under your feet, and it's easier to do them for yourself. But if I am a leader, that's what I want you to have, and I'm headed somewhere then I make my decision better. It's more painful initially to include them in the process, but the benefit down the road is just huge. And I'm not interested in polling this room, but it would be kind of fun. I guarantee many people in this room live with somebody whose mom did not understand that. And so you've got an adult male living with you that doesn't know how to take care of themselves, that wants you to do everything in the house. Their mom, in the attempt to show them love and give them a happy childhood, didn't want to bother them and teach them how to wash clothes. Didn't want to teach them that they could learn to cook and be a contributing part of the thing. They were taught that the mom is there to caretake. And so they got taken care of. And now you got a 35-year-old, 3-year-old on your hands. And I don't mean that ugly, because they probably are very competent in other areas, but they weren't. Their mom did them a disservice by doing that. And so, all right, let me ask you this. If I am headed towards what I want with my children when they're in their mid-20s is to be happy. I want them to be content, fulfilled people. All right, how are we going to get there? So let me remind you, when you are born, you are not born with the understanding of what to do with frustration. You are not born with the understanding of what to do with your anger. You're not born with the understanding of what in the world you do when you're bored. You don't know those things. And so, as a mom, if I'm headed down the road with them, I need to understand that, what? It's okay for my child to be bored. I don't have to fix that for them all the time, because if I do, they don't learn how to fix it themselves. And there's boring parts of all our lives. And if they don't know how to do that, then when they get older, boredom feels like depression when they're like don't know what to do with it. Or when they are frustrated, again, we're talking all different kind of temperaments of kids. Some kids just, because of the easygoingness of their temperament, know how to roll with frustration better than others. But they're not born knowing how to do that. So when my child flips out at 2.5 and is having a tantrum, or when my child is 12 years old and is so frustrated and angry at me because I won't let them go spend the night with Sally, those are natural responses on their part. And it's my job not to think that there's something wrong with them because they're tantruming, or not to think that there's something wrong with them because they get mad when they don't get their way, but to understand that they don't know that, and that it is my job to help them through it. But I can't always help them through frustration if every time they want it, I give it, you know, if they can talk me out of it. But that's why I go back to the guilt monster. The guilt monster will tell you, oh, you know, they just want to watch this TV show before they go to bed, and I don't think it's right. They're going to be in bed late. I don't want them to do it. But dadgummit, we've all had a hard day. I hadn't been home. I'm going to let them do it. So they don't learn to know what to do with how you say no and the frustrating feelings that come about when they do that. Okay. So I don't know. Have I like beat that horse to death? Because I don't want to keep beating it. All right. So the other thing that I want to say to you as a parent leader is that you have to understand that leadership parenting has everything to do with how you present yourself. Everything to do with it. When we open it up to questions, y'all may ask me about specific discipline ideas. And that's great. We will throw some of that stuff around. But I'm here to tell you that the majority of discipline comes from me understanding my role and how I present myself in doing the discipline, and how I communicate to my child what I expect and how I expect it done. So discipline is 95% presentation and communication, and 5% trying to figure out the techniques. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. But how you present yourself sets up the relationship with your child. All right, so now let me tell you what I mean. For our children, when we make decisions about what we want them to do and what we don't want them to do. All right, let me give you this example. I have, and I've used this a lot of times, you have two kids in your car. One's in a car, they're both in the back seat. In car seats, you're driving, you're just trying to get home. And dadgum, one of those kids is kicking their sibling. You tell them to stop. Woo-hoo, they're not stopping. They stop for the moment while your eyes are looking at the mirror with them, but then they just go right back to punching their little brother. You say stop. They are not listening. They keep punching. Okay, so now here's where presentation comes in. So we're all human. What do? You start to lose control. You know, they're out of control, and you're headed to be out of control. So all of a sudden, your voice starts rising. You start screaming, I mean it, I threaten you. You'll never go to the pool all summer, you know. And you are just very quickly out of control of your own self. But you're frustrated because, you know, you're in the middle of traffic and you can't really get to them, you know, and strangle them. So you're going out of control. So this is what I want to say. You may be able to reach your hand back there and pop them hard enough to stop them for a second, but the truth is you can't get them under control until you get yourself under control. And so, this is what I'm saying to you as a leader. I have to work on what I can do and when I can do it and how I'm going to do it. And it is, I mean, maybe the first time your 5-year-old punches his little 2-year-old sister, you're just shocked at your angel doing that. But after the first time, you're not shocked. You know they're capable of it, and you know they're going to do it at some point, sometime, particularly if they're tired, and the 2-year-old over there sitting there humming, and your 5-year-old wants them to be quiet, you know? So it is not surprising to you that a problem is going to happen in the back seat. So what are you going to do? You may have some options. You may be able to pull off the road and control yourself and open the door, you know, open the back door and have some conversation with them. And the situation may call for that. You may be able to do that. But for most of us, that won't work because you just got to get home. I mean, we got to move. I can't stop in the middle of 285 and pull over and have this conversation. That doesn't work. So what am I going to do with my 5-year-old because he did that? I am going to decide what I can control and what I can't. And what I can't control, maybe in that moment, is what he's doing to his sister. If I cannot control it, then what I can control is myself. I can keep myself from losing control and screaming and yelling and threatening and banging them and doing stuff that is not helpful. The other thing I can control is what I'm going to do about it when I am in a situation that I can help it. So I can't do anything while they're in the car. And I'm just giving you an example, when we get home and when we get to that driveway and I get everybody's stuff out and I give everybody in, then I've got some options. Then I can't have decided beforehand, okay, what am I going to do with Johnny? You know, I got to get supper done, so I don't have a time to go in a big conversation with him about this now. But I can, what? I can take Johnny and sit him in his room and say, Johnny, not okay what you did to Caitlin today. You sitting here, Mommy will come get you when supper's in. Or everybody runs outside and Johnny stays sitting in the kitchen with you. I'm sorry, Johnny, not now. You stay here. You didn't mind Mommy in the car. But the huge part of frustration as a parent that we have to learn is that I have to control what I can control, and what I can't control much of the time is my child's behavior. I can't. Now, when they're 2, when they're 3, they can be doing something and you can literally pick them up and move them to where you want them. You could, if there's room in your car, rearrange the car seats. There are some things you can do to stop a behavior. But when you got a child telling you they're not eating their spinach, what are you doing? You can get yourself angrier and angrier and threaten and beg and try to give them treats and everything else. But you cannot stuff that spinach down their throat unless you want defects coming. You know, you can't do that. So, but as parents, what we get involved with is our goal is to make them do what we want. And I am here to say to you is that as a leader parent, what your responsibility is to control yourself and then think about how you want the situation handled when you can do something about it. Let me give you another example. So, I don't know, you've got folks coming over to your house, and your 7-year-old's been playing with all his junk in the living room, and you're looking at the clock, and in 15 minutes everybody's coming, and you say, Ross, pick up your toys. You know, the Smiths are coming, I need you to pick up your toys. Well, it's him picking up his toys, and he just absolutely ignores you. He won't pick up your toys. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to what I've just said again because I want y'all to play it in a lot of situations. So, what you have control of is how you handle yourself. And what we find we do when we forget that we're leaders is we beg them, we threaten them, we yell at them, we swat them, we do things that are examples of our anger, but they're not solutions to whatever the situation is. And I am looking to, as the leader, to do things that I want done in response to the situation. You know, and have y'all not done this? So you get with your 7-year-old. It's okay maybe with a 2-year-old, but with your 7-year-old, go, okay, you pick up one block, I'll pick up another block. You pick up one block, I pick up another block. And this 7-year-old's going, yes, clean up the whole living room. I don't care. You know, and they've just manipulated you to do it, and they walk away, and you think you've worked it out, but really you haven't. All right, so now I'm asking you again. You can't make them pick up their toys. Y'all are going to may differ with me on that, but I'm telling you, you can't. You can control yourself, and you can control the situation. So I can look at the clock, and I can go, oh my gosh, now we only got 10 minutes. These people are coming. If I make a big deal out of this right now, we're going to have everybody screaming, crying. I'm going to be mad when the Smiths ring the doorbell. This is not the time I want to deal with it. So I'm in control, not him. And so I can say, you know, move on, Ross. And I pick up his toys. Isn't that terrible? And I put them in the closet, and the Smiths ring the doorbell, and I'm happy, and Ross got away with murder. So he thinks. I don't care. I enjoy my night. I'm not stressed out. Saturday morning, he wants to watch cartoons? No, sir. What? Last night, I asked you to pick up your toys, and you ignored me. No, sir. And now I can control that, because I can control. And you can go, no, I can't. He can just run over there and turn on the TV himself. Yeah, he can. Again, I can't make him not do that. But if that's what he does, then, again, what am I responsible for? I'm responsible to not lose control and go over there and start beating him or fighting him for the TV remote. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not dumb. He can go turn on that TV. I can go right upstairs to the cable thing and unplug it. You know? And I'm not saying that's what y'all do, but my examples are to say to you is I can control me, and I can control my response to how I manipulate the situation. But my frustration will grow when I try to make him do it. And so the big thing is school. You know, you want your child to just do their math, and they won't do it. You beg them. You show them. They won't do it. And so you find yourself almost on top of them Do number one. Did you read number one? Do number two. Did you read number two? And you're just all on top of them, trying to literally force them to do it. That's where you give up your leadership as a parent. Because if you get into a power play with your child, by definition, even if in that moment you conquer them, you've lost, because you're not in control and you're not the authority. And they're just going to up their resistance the next time. You know what I'm saying? So I am looking, if he won't do his math, I am in control of myself, deciding what I'm going to do about it. And I really may not be able to do anything about it right then. But I can decide what I'm going to do, what he's not going to do if he doesn't do his math. Remember I'm saying that leadership is about communication. So you're not a good leader if you're sitting there going, I told you, you're not going outside if you don't do this. Did I tell you? You're not going outside. And you're just like a broken record going, do your math or you're not going out. Do your math or you're not going out. What you're trying to do is help them over the finish line. No. I've told them I want them to do their math. If they don't do it, then I decide what happens, but I'm not begging them to do it. They get to feel the consequences, because as a leader, it is my responsibility to help my children understand cause and effect. You know, when you do something, there are good results out of what you do, and there's also bad results. And if I step in the middle of it and they won't pick up their room, and so I go and pick up their room for them, and then they have no other consequences for me doing it for them, then they don't learn what cause and effect goes. You know what I'm saying? Clear communication is concise. In other words, think about how old your child is. If you want your children, I don't know, to pick up their room, then ask them to pick up their room, but don't ask them in paragraph form. Don't say, I need you to pick up your room because Grandma's coming on Saturday and we've only got 20 minutes, and you just give all these different pieces of information that are distracting. They don't really matter. It's, I need you to pick up your room before we leave to go to baseball, or I need you to pick up your room because your grandparents are coming on Saturday. One sentence, and that's enough. But we end up trying to convince them that what we are asking them to do is reasonable. It doesn't work, you know. And then when you do that, because you're talking to them in paragraph form, trying to convince them what you're asking, you're giving up your position as a leader. Because what, you know, I'm trying to tell my 15-year-old that I need her to clean up her bathroom because, you know, it's good to be responsible. You need to have a lot, you know, you need to understand how to clean a toilet. And they're like, and you think they're going to go, oh, okay, now I understand why you want me to do it. And they're going to change their mind. They're not. They don't want to do it. So I'm giving them the task to do without trying to become a lawyer convincing them why I want them to do it. And the more I try to convince, that takes away some of my power. Now, you can look at me and you can say, well, yeah, but what if they ask why? And I want you to say, I want to answer you this question that you know your children in a given situation. I do not. If a child asks you why, and they really want to know why, when you give them the answer, they're good. But if a child asks you why, and then you tell them, and then they start giving you their reasons, they didn't ask you why because they care about your reasons at all. They asked you why because they just want to convince you of their position. And then I'm not interested in going into a debate with my child. If, you know, and so how come we can't have licorice in the house, I can say, because it's got a lot of sugar in it. Yeah, and then they start in, well, but sugar's not that bad for you and this and that. Then if you're a leader, don't join in the conversation, because they're not going to believe you no matter what you say. They're just trying to convince you of their position. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so what else do I want to say before I let y'all ask me some questions? So I want to be concise, but I also want to put it in terms that they understand. I guess that's the thing I'd say. So if you take your 4-year-old into the grocery store, for example, and you are very concise when you get them out of the car, and you say, okay, I want you to be good while we're in the store. And that's all you said. Well, that's concise, but it's not very clear, because what you think is good and what they think is good can be two different things. So you want to give your child enough information so they know what you want. And it can be, Sarah, when we go into the store, I don't want you to touch anything on a shelf. Now, they know what you expect. And that's different from, I want you to be good, and you think they know what they mean, you know. Or you can say, when they're in the back seat of the car, Sam, I want you to not touch your sister. That's clear. If you say, Sam, just leave Sarah alone. Well, in his world, punching her may be leaving her alone. You know, I don't know. So I want to be clear as well, because I'm going to hold them accountable for what I'm telling them.
Thank you, Marian, so much
You're
for
welcome.
being here.
I do have cards if y'all want them. That's fine.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.